Captain Hyun-woo Park stood on the bridge of Seoul's Pride and watched the alien ships appear on his screens. 3 massive vessels dropped out of hyperspace, each one 10 times larger than his own ship. He kept his face calm, but his heart was beating fast. This was the moment Earth had been waiting for. "Sir, they're sending a message," said his communications officer, Lieutenant Bo-ra Kim. Her voice was steady, but Hyun-woo could see her hands shaking slightly. "Put it through," he said. The main screen flickered and an alien face appeared. It had blue-gray skin, 4 eyes, and a mouth full of sharp teeth. When it spoke, the translator made its voice sound deep and commanding. "Unknown vessel, this is Commander Veltar of the Chroman Imperial Fleet. You have entered space controlled by the Galactic Coalition. State your identity and purpose." Hyun-woo straightened his uniform. Everything depended on the next few minutes. "This is Captain Hyun-woo Park of the Earth vessel Seoul's Pride. We come in peace, seeking contact with other intelligent life." There was a long pause. Hyun-woo could almost see the alien thinking. Finally, Veltar spoke again. "Earth, we have no records of your world or species. How many vessels do you possess?" This was the crucial question. Hyun-woo had practiced this answer hundreds of times. "We have 12 ships total. This is one of our largest." On the alien's face, Hyun-woo saw something that looked like amusement, maybe even pity. 12 ships? For your entire species?" "Yes, Commander. We are still learning to build spacecraft. Our technology is basic." Veltar's expression changed to what humans might call a smirk. "I see. Well, Captain Park, you are fortunate. The Galactic Coalition protects peaceful species. We will escort you to our diplomatic station." As the alien ships moved into formation around Seoul's Pride, Hyun-woo allowed himself a small smile. The first part of the plan was working perfectly. 3 days later, Ambassador Jinna Lee sat across from 5 alien representatives in a meeting room that was bigger than most buildings on Earth. At least, that's what the aliens thought. The truth was very different, but Jinna kept that to herself. The aliens were impressive in their own ways. Veltar represented the Chroman Empire, a military-focused civilization that valued strength above all else. Next to him sat Kethnos, a being made of living metal from the Silicon Collective. High Arbiter Luxandra was a tall, crystal-like creature whose body caught and reflected light in beautiful patterns. Fleet Marshal Varadin looked like a cross between a squid and a shark, his tentacles moving constantly as he spoke. Finally, there was Supreme Chancellor Corinvel, who looked almost human except for his pale purple skin and completely black eyes. "Ambassador Lee," said Chancellor Corinvel, his voice carrying the authority of someone used to being obeyed, "we have reviewed the information about your species. Earth has a population of 8 billion, correct?" Jinna nodded. "That's right, Chancellor. We are a young species still learning about the galaxy." "And you have only 12 spacecraft?" asked Fleet Marshal Varadin, his tentacles twitching in what might have been amusement. "Yes, Marshal. We've only recently developed faster-than-light travel. These ships represent years of work for our entire civilization." High Arbiter Luxandra made a sound like wind chimes. The translator interpreted it as laughter. "How quaint. Tell me, Ambassador, what do you hope to gain from contact with the Coalition?" Jinna had prepared for this question too. "We hope to learn from you. Your civilizations are clearly far more advanced than ours. We would be grateful for any guidance you could offer." The aliens exchanged glances. Jinna could almost read their thoughts. Here was another primitive species barely worthy of notice. Exactly what Earth wanted them to think. Veltar leaned forward. "The Coalition has a program for species like yours. We call it protected status. You would be under our guidance and protection while you develop." "What would that involve?" Jinna asked, though she already knew the answer. "Your military activities would be supervised by Coalition advisors," explained Kethnos, his metallic voice emotionless. "Your expansion into space would be carefully managed. In return, we would protect you from hostile forces and share some basic technologies." Jinna pretended to consider this. "This is a generous offer. I would need to consult with my government, of course." "Of course," said Chancellor Corinvel. Take all the time you need. A decision this important should not be rushed. As the meeting ended and Jinna was escorted back to her quarters, she activated a small device hidden in her clothing. Miles away, in a facility that the aliens didn't know existed, her message was received and decoded. Director Tai Min Kim read the report with satisfaction. Everything was going according to plan. He turned to his aide, Colonel Minseo Yang, who was analyzing data from the diplomatic meeting. What do you think of their technology? He asked. Minseo looked up from her screens. Impressive, but not impossible to counter. Their shields operate on a frequency we've already learned to disrupt. Their weapons are powerful but predictable. Most importantly, they're overconfident. Taemin nodded. Good. And their tactical analysis? They think we're harmless, Minseo replied. Commander Veltar's report describes us as barely space-capable primitives with no military value. Marshal Varidin thinks we might be useful as scouts or support personnel, but nothing more. Perfect. Taemin walked to the window of his office. Outside, he could see the lights of New Geneva, one of humanity's first off-world colonies. The aliens had no idea it existed. They thought Earth was humanity's only world. In reality, humans had been expanding into space for over 50 years. They had colonies on 43 worlds, hidden bases throughout the galaxy, and a population that exceeded 50 billion. The 12 ships the aliens had seen were just the tip of an iceberg that stretched far deeper than any of them could imagine. Far out in the Kuiper Belt, Admiral Su-Jin Choi watched her crews put the finishing touches on the newest additions to humanity's real fleet. The shipyard was massive, hidden behind a field of asteroids and protected by technology that made it invisible to alien sensors. Admiral, said Captain Jae-hoon Ryu, approaching her with a datapad. The new Sol is ready for its final tests. All systems are operating within normal parameters. Su-Jin looked at the ship through the observation window. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. The new Sol was 3 times larger than the biggest coalition dreadnought, armed with weapons that could crack a planet's crust, and protected by shields that could absorb the full output of a star. Good, she said. How many ships are ready? For deployment? 1,500 in the first wave, Admiral. Another 3,000 in various stages of completion. Su-Jin smiled. The aliens thought humanity had 12 ships. In reality, they had built an armada that could conquer half the galaxy if necessary, but conquest wasn't the plan, not yet anyway. Keep them hidden for now, she ordered. Our friends in the coalition aren't ready to see our real face. Back on the diplomatic station, Jinna Lee met with the coalition representatives again. This time, she had Earth's answer. My government has carefully considered your generous offer, she said. We accept protected status with gratitude. We hope to learn much from your guidance. The aliens looked pleased. Another primitive species brought into the fold. Another potential problem solved before it could become dangerous. Excellent, said Chancellor Corinvel. We will begin the integration process immediately. Coalition advisors will be sent to Earth to help establish proper protocols. As the meeting ended, and the aliens congratulated themselves on another successful first contact, none of them noticed the small smile that played across Jinna Lee's lips. Earth had just convinced the galaxy's most powerful alliance that humanity was weak, primitive, and harmless. It was the greatest deception in galactic history, and it was only the beginning. In the depths of space, hidden fleets waited in silence. On secret worlds, billions of humans prepared for what was coming. And in the shadows, intelligence networks that had been mapping coalition space for decades continued their patient work. The galaxy thought it had found another species to protect. In reality, it had just encountered the most dangerous predator in the known universe. And the predator was just getting started. 6 months had passed since humanity joined the Galactic Coalition as a protected species. Captain Junho Nam stood on the bridge of his ship, the Busan Runner, and watched the stars drift by. His vessel was one of the 12 ships the aliens knew about, designed to look old and patched together. In reality, It was far more advanced than it appeared. "Captain," said his tactical officer, Lieutenant Eugene Park, "we're receiving a distress signal. 3 ships under attack by pirates." Junho frowned. The timing was suspicious. "Show me." The main screen displayed 3 alien vessels being fired upon by what looked like Kroman raiders. The attacking ships had the right markings, but something felt wrong about the whole situation. "Sir," said his communications officer, "the attacked ships are requesting immediate assistance. They claim their engines are damaged." Junho knew this was a test. The Kroman Empire was known for testing new coalition members, seeing how they responded to danger. They probably expected him to call for help or run away. Instead, he smiled. "All hands, prepare for combat. Set course for the battle." His crew looked surprised. They had been told to act like frightened newcomers, but Junho had received special orders from Earth. It was time to show a little of what humans could really do. The Busan runner approached the battle at what appeared to be maximum speed. The 3 Kroman raiders turned their attention to the new arrival, seeing an easy target. Their leader, War Commander Vextai, opened a communication channel. "Small ship, this is none of your concern. Leave now or be destroyed," Junho responded calmly. "This is Captain Nam of the Earth vessel Busan Runner. Release those ships and surrender." The Kroman burst into laughter. 1 small human ship against 3 Kroman raiders? It was almost insulting. "Your bravery is noted, human," said Vextai, "but your stupidity will be your death." The 3 raiders opened fire at once. Their plasma cannons lit up space as they targeted the human ship. But Junho was ready. "Evasive maneuvers," he ordered. "Pattern 7. The Busan runner suddenly moved like no ship the Kroman had ever seen. It twisted and spun through space, dodging plasma bolts by inches. The ship's movements looked desperate and random, but they were actually carefully calculated. "Return fire," Junho said quietly. The Busan runner's weapons were disguised to look primitive, but they hit with surprising accuracy. The first Kroman ship lost its shield generators. The second found its weapon systems disabled by a precisely targeted EMP burst. "Impossible," muttered Vextai. "How can they be so accurate?" But the real surprise came when Junho ordered his most dangerous maneuver. "Full speed ahead, ramming course." The Kroman couldn't believe what they were seeing. The human ship was accelerating directly toward Vextai's vessel, apparently planning to ram it. Kroman ships were built for war, but ramming attacks had been abandoned centuries ago as too primitive and dangerous. "He's insane," said Vextai's tactical officer. "Pull back." But it was too late. At the last second, the Busan runner fired every weapon it had directly into the Kroman ship's hull. The combined impact of the energy weapons and the physical collision sent Vextai's ship spinning out of control. The 3rd Kroman raider tried to escape, but Junho was ready for that too. His ship somehow managed to change direction instantly, something that should have been impossible. A final volley of weapons fire disabled the fleeing vessel. In less than 10 minutes, 1 human ship had defeated 3 Kroman raiders. Across the galaxy, war leader Zekmoth watched the battle recordings with growing interest. He was one of the most experienced military commanders in the Kroman Empire, and he had never seen anything like this. The human tactics were completely unexpected. Instead of trying to match the Kroman ships in firepower, they had used speed, accuracy, and pure audacity. The ramming attack especially intrigued him. It was both primitive and brilliant at the same time. "Analysis," he said to his aide. "The human ship should have been destroyed in the first exchange of fire," the aide replied. "Their victory appears to be the result of superior piloting, creative tactics, and exceptional luck." Zekmoth wasn't convinced. He had fought enough battles to know the difference between luck and skill. "What about their technology?" "Primitive compared to ours, war leader. Their weapons are basic plasma cannons. Their shields are simple energy barriers. Their ship appears to be a converted civilian vessel." But Zekmoth was thinking about something else. The way the human ship had moved, the precision of its attacks, the timing of every maneuver. It all suggested careful planning and extensive practice. "Send a message to Earth Command," he ordered. "I want to meet with this Captain Nam." Meanwhile, in the Coalition's Central Command, the reaction was very different. High Arbiter Luxandra reviewed the battle report with what humans would recognize as annoyance. The humans acted without authorization, she said to the assembled Coalition leaders. They should have requested support and waited for proper military units to handle the situation. Fleet Marshal Varidan's tentacles writhed with what might have been agreement. Their tactics were crude and dangerous. Ramming attacks went out of style millennia ago. Supreme Chancellor Corinvel nodded slowly. While we must commend their courage, we cannot allow protected species to take such risks. They could have been destroyed. Perhaps, said Commander Veltar, but they achieved victory. Against 3 Croman ships, no less. Lucky hits and desperate moves, dismissed Luxandra. Nothing more. But in a secure facility on Earth, Director Taemin Kim was reading a very different report. Colonel Min Seo Yang stood beside him, analyzing every detail of the battle. Perfect execution, she said. Captain Nam followed the plan exactly. He showed enough skill to be impressive, but not enough to be threatening. What about the Croman response? Mixed. Most of their leadership dismisses it as primitive luck. But war leader Zekmoth is asking questions. He wants to meet with Captain Nam personally. Taemin considered this. Zekmoth was dangerous because he was smart. Unlike most Coalition leaders, he might see through the deception if they weren't careful. Allow the meeting, he decided, but make sure Captain Nam understands his role. 2 weeks later, Junho found himself aboard a Croman battleship, face-to-face with war leader Zekmoth. The alien was impressive, nearly 8 feet tall, covered in natural armor plates with 4 arms and eyes that seemed to see everything. Captain Nam, Zekmoth said in surprisingly good English. Your recent battle was interesting. We did what we had to do, Junho replied carefully. Those ships were in danger. Yes, but your methods were unusual. The ramming attack, for example. Very bold. Junho shrugged. Our weapons weren't powerful enough to penetrate their armor. I thought physical impact might work better. Zekmoth studied him carefully. And the precision of your other attacks? Your ship moved like it had done this before. This was the dangerous moment. Junho had to sell the lie perfectly. We practice a lot. Earth doesn't have many ships, so we have to make each one count. Every pilot trains constantly in simulation. Simulation of what? Your species has no experience with space combat. Junho smiled. We learn from Coalition training programs. We study every battle recording we can find. When you only have 12 ships, you have to be very careful. It was a good answer. It explained human skill while reinforcing the idea that Earth was weak and limited. Zekmoth seemed to accept it, though Junho could see the alien was still thinking. Your courage is admirable, Zekmoth finally said. But courage without strength is dangerous. Perhaps the Croman could provide additional training for your pilots. That would be very generous, Junho replied. We have much to learn. As the meeting ended, both sides felt they had learned something important. Zekmoth believed he had met a brave but limited species that might one day become useful allies. Junho knew he had successfully maintained the deception while planting seeds of respect in Croman minds. But in the deepest parts of space, where no Coalition sensors could reach, the real truth was becoming clear. Admiral Sujin Choi watched as her engineering crews completed work on another batch of warships. Each vessel was a masterpiece of technology and design, incorporating lessons learned from decades of secret observation. Admiral, reported Captain So-Young Park, reconnaissance teams have mapped another 12 Coalition systems. We now have detailed intelligence on their defensive positions throughout the eastern spiral arm. Sujin nodded. Every day brought more information about Coalition, capabilities, weaknesses, and strategic positions. While the aliens thought they were protecting humanity, humans were actually conducting the most comprehensive intelligence operation in galactic history. How many ships are ready for deployment now? 2,000, Admiral, with another 5,000 in various stages of construction. Sujin looked out at the vast shipyard, hidden in a nebula that Coalition sensors couldn't penetrate. Soon, very soon, it would be time to reveal the truth. But not yet. Humanity needed to be absolutely certain about its enemies before showing its real strength. The galaxy thought humans were weak, desperate, and grateful for protection. In reality, they were patient, cunning, and very, very dangerous. And every day the deception continued. They became stronger. The emergency alarm echoed through Coalition headquarters as Supreme Chancellor Coronvel rushed into the command center. The massive screens showed images that chilled him to his core. Entire star systems going dark, planets stripped bare, fleets disappearing without a trace. "Report," he ordered, his black eyes reflecting the red warning lights. High Arbiter Luxandra's crystal body pulsed with agitated colors. "They came from beyond the galactic rim 3 days ago. We're calling them Devourers. They consume everything, planets, ships, even asteroids. Nothing seems to stop them." Fleet Marshal Varadin's tentacles writhed with anxiety. "We've lost contact with 12 systems. Admiral Kothrun's Third Fleet encountered them at Epsilon Station. Only 3 ships escaped." Commander Veltar slammed his fist on the command table. "How is this possible? We've had peace for 4 centuries. Our fleets are the strongest in the galaxy." "These things are different," replied the Marshal. "They don't negotiate, don't communicate. They just eat everything in their path." Chancellor Coronvel studied the tactical displays. The Devourer advance was slow but unstoppable. At their current rate, they would reach the Coalition's core worlds within months. "We need every ship, every weapon, every warrior we can find," he said grimly. "Contact all member species. This is a galactic emergency." 3 days later, Ambassador Jinnah Lee received the Coalition's desperate request. She sat in her office, on the diplomatic station, reading the message with carefully hidden satisfaction. Everything was going exactly as Earth had predicted. "Ambassador," came Chancellor Coronvel's voice through the communicator. "The Coalition faces its greatest crisis in recorded history. We need every available ship in the fight against the Devourers." Jinnah made her voice sound worried and eager to help. "Of course, Chancellor. Earth stands with the Coalition. What can we do?" "We need your fleet. All 12 ships, if possible." Jinnah paused as if considering the enormity of the request. "Our entire fleet? That would leave Earth completely defenseless." "I understand the sacrifice we're asking," Coronvel replied. "But if the Devourers aren't stopped, there won't be an Earth to defend." "You're right, of course. I'll contact my government immediately." Within hours, Jinnah sent the Coalition's response. Earth would commit 37 ships to the war effort. Their entire available fleet plus some hastily converted civilian vessels. It was more than the Coalition had expected from such a small species, and they were grateful for the sacrifice. Captain Hyunwoo Park stood on the Bridge of Souls, pride as his small fleet approached the battle zone. 37 human vessels, all looking like they had been built in someone's backyard. Converted cargo ships, modified passenger liners, and a few actual military vessels that seemed held together with hope and determination. "Sir," said Lieutenant Bora Kim, "we're receiving Coalition fleet positions. Admiral Kothrun wants us to take position in the rear support area." Hyunwoo nodded. "Understood. Tell the Admiral we're ready to assist however we can." The human fleet took its assigned position behind the main Coalition battle line. From there, they had a perfect view of what they were up against. The Devourer fleet was unlike anything in Coalition records. Their ships looked grown rather than built, with organic curves and surfaces that seemed to pulse with their own life. The largest vessel was the size of a small moon, its surface covered with what looked like feeding tentacles. "My God," whispered Navigator Sungmin Lee. "How do you fight something like that?" Hyunwoo kept his expression calm, but inside he was taking notes on everything he saw. The shape of the enemy ships, their movement patterns, their weapon signatures, all valuable intelligence that would be transmitted back to Earth through hidden quantum channels. The battle began badly for the Coalition. Their traditional formations and tactics perfected over centuries of warfare proved useless against an enemy that fought like a living organism. Devourer ships swarmed over Coalition vessels, literally consuming them from the inside out. Human fleet, Admiral Cothroon's voice crackled over the communication system. "Move forward and assist the 3rd Squadron. They're being overrun." Yanwu hesitated just long enough to seem reluctant, then ordered his ships forward. The human vessels moved toward the combat zone, their weapons firing at maximum range. But it was clear from the start that they were outmatched. Human plasma cannons barely scratched the Devourer ship's organic armor. Their shields held for minutes instead of hours. One by one, human vessels began taking critical damage. "Soul's Pride is hit," reported the damage control officer. "Hull, breach on deck 7 through 9. Life support failing in section C." "Busan Runner is requesting permission to withdraw," added the communications officer. "They've lost main power and half their weapons." Hyunwoo made the decision he had been ordered to make. "All ships execute emergency withdrawal. Fall back to the rally point." The human fleet limped away from the battle, several ships barely functional. To Coalition observers, it looked like another brave, but ultimately futile gesture by an inferior species. "The humans tried their best," Admiral Cothroon reported to Coalition Command. "But their technology simply isn't adequate for this level of combat. We've lost 8 of their ships with most of the others damaged." High Arbiter Luxandra's response was predictable. "Brave but foolish. We should not have asked such primitives to face an enemy like this." But thousands of light years away in a facility that didn't officially exist, Captain So-Young Park was analyzing every second of the battle. Her stealth ship had been hidden in the combat zone, recording everything, with sensors far more advanced than anything the Coalition possessed. "Fascinating," she said to her science officer, Dr. Yoon Ji-han. "The Devourers aren't using traditional energy weapons. They're manipulating matter at the molecular level. Can our shields handle it?" "Easily. Our adaptive barriers can adjust to counter this type of attack. The real question is their command structure." So-Young studied the tactical displays. "Look at the movement patterns. They're coordinated, but there's a delay between the large ship's orders and the smaller vessel's responses. That suggests a central command node." Dr. Han nodded excitedly. "If we could disrupt that command link, the entire swarm would lose coordination." "Exactly." So-Young smiled. "Send this data to Admiral Choi immediately, and prepare a full tactical analysis for Director Kim." Back on Earth, Director Tae-min Kim read So-Young's report with growing satisfaction. The Devourers were dangerous but not invincible. More importantly, they were exactly the kind of enemy that would justify what was coming next. "Status report," he said to Colonel Min Seo-Yang. "The Coalition believes we've lost 8 ships and had most of the others damaged beyond repair," she replied. "They're no longer counting on human support for the war effort." "Perfect. What about our intelligence gathering?" "Complete success. We now have detailed scans of Devourer technology, Coalition battle tactics under extreme stress, and command protocols for their emergency response. Our analysis teams are identifying weaknesses in both sides." Taemin walked to his office window. Outside, the lights of humanity's secret civilization stretched to the horizon. Cities that the Coalition didn't know existed, populated by people who didn't officially exist, all working toward the same goal. "How long until the Coalition calls for our reserves?" "Within the week, sir. Their losses are accelerating and they're getting desperate. They'll ask us to commit any remaining ships we might have." "And when they do?" Colonel Yang smiled. "We tell them we're mobilizing our emergency reserves, ships held back for the defense of Earth itself." "Excellent. Make sure Admiral Choi is ready. Phase 2 begins soon." In the depths of space, Admiral Sujin Choi received her orders and began the final preparations. The true fleet had been hidden for decades, waiting for exactly this moment. Soon, very soon, the galaxy would see what humanity really was. But first, they needed to let the Coalition suffer a little more. Fear and desperation would make the revelation even more effective. The Devourers were doing humanity a favor by weakening the Coalition's arrogance. On the diplomatic station, Ambassador Jinnah Lee prepared for another difficult conversation with Chancellor Corin Vel. She would express humanity's continued willingness to help, despite their terrible losses. She would offer Earth's final reserves, the last ships they could possibly spare. The Chancellor would be grateful for humanity's sacrifice. He would praise their courage and promise them a place of honor in coalition history. And he would never suspect that the species he was protecting was actually the most dangerous predator the galaxy had ever known. The deception was almost complete. Soon, it would be time for the truth to emerge. And when it did, the galaxy would never be the same. Analyst Nexira studied the data streams flowing across her workstation, her 6 eyes tracking patterns that most beings would miss. As one of the Void Swimmer's best intelligence officers, she had seen thousands of battle reports. But lately, something strange was happening in the war against the Devourers. "Commander Kilshan," she called to her superior, "I need to show you something unusual." The large Void Swimmer approached her station, his tentacles swaying with curiosity. "What have you found, analyst?" Nexira highlighted several star systems on her display. "These are areas where we lost contact with Devourer scout groups over the past 2 weeks. According to our records, these systems are empty. No coalition forces, no inhabited worlds, nothing of military value. Perhaps the Devourers are fighting among themselves. That's what I thought at first. But look at this debris analysis from the Kepler-7 system." She brought up detailed scans showing wreckage floating in space, twisted metal and composite materials, some clearly from Devourer vessels, others from ships of unknown design. "The metallurgy on these unknown fragments is interesting," Nexira continued. "The alloy composition matches samples we collected from human vessels, but the technology level is far more advanced." Commander Kilshan's tentacles went still. "Are you suggesting the humans have been fighting the Devourers in secret?" "I'm suggesting someone has been fighting the Devourers in these systems. And whoever it is, they're winning." Across the galaxy, War Leader Zekmoth was conducting his own investigation. The Chroman warrior stood in the ruins of a space station that had been attacked by Devourers 3 days earlier. His engineering teams were analyzing the wreckage, looking for clues about the enemy's capabilities. "War Leader," reported his aide, pointing to a section of twisted hull plating, "we found something you should see." Zekmoth examined the metal. Carefully, the damage patterns were wrong. Instead of the molecular dissolution typical of Devourer attacks, this showed evidence of high-energy plasma weapons. "This wasn't done by Devourers," he said slowly. "Someone else was here." His aide nodded nervously. "We found similar weapon signatures at 3 other attack sites. Someone is hunting the Devourers, War Leader." Zekmoth's mind raced with possibilities. Who could be fighting the Devourers without coalition knowledge? And more importantly, who was advanced enough to defeat them? "Send a message to Intelligence Command," he ordered. "I want a full investigation of all recent Devourer losses. And get me everything we have on human military capabilities." Meanwhile, Captain So-Young Park guided her stealth ship through the asteroid field, where a Devourer scouting force had been destroyed 2 hours earlier. Her mission was simple: gather intelligence while remaining completely undetected. The Inchin's shadow was invisible to coalition sensors, protected by technology decades ahead of anything they had revealed. Its hull was covered in adaptive camouflage that bent light around it, making it effectively transparent. "Captain," reported her science officer, Dr. Yoon-Ji Han, "I'm detecting 3 coalition ships approaching, Chroman vessels, moving in a search pattern." So-Young smiled. "Perfect timing. Let them do the investigating while we watch and learn." The 3 Chroman ships arrived at the battle site and began their analysis. So-Young's passive sensors recorded everything: their scanning frequencies, their communication protocols, their standard investigation procedures, all valuable intelligence for the coming revelation. "The Chroman are getting suspicious," Dr. Han observed. "They're finding evidence of our weapons." "Good," So-Young replied. "Suspicion without proof will make them more desperate when the time comes." On Earth, Director Taemin Kim was reviewing reports from agents throughout Coalition space. The pattern was clear. Their enemies were starting to notice the inconsistencies, but they hadn't figured out the truth yet. "Sir," said Colonel Min Seo. Yang, entering his office with a datapad, We have a problem. War leader Zekmoth is asking for detailed information about our military capabilities. He specifically requested technical specifications for our weapons and ship designs. Taemin frowned. What's our response? Ambassador Lee is telling them that most of our technical data was lost when our ships were destroyed. She's claiming that Earth's manufacturing capabilities are severely limited and we're having trouble replacing our losses. Will they believe it? For now. But Zekmoth is smart. He's putting pieces together. If he continues investigating, he might realize that human ships have been fighting devourers in systems we're not supposed to know about. Taemin considered this. The plan had always included the possibility that some coalition leaders might become suspicious. In fact, they were counting on it. Let him investigate, he decided. But make sure he doesn't find anything definitive. We need them curious, not certain. 2 weeks later, the situation reached a critical point. Chancellor Corinvel called an emergency meeting of the Coalition High Council. The war against the Devourers was going badly, with Coalition forces suffering defeat after defeat. We need reinforcements, he announced to the assembled leaders. Every ship, every pilot, every weapon we can find. High Arbiter Luxandra's crystal, body pulsed with frustrated light. What about the human reserves? They mentioned having emergency ships held back for Earth's defense. Fleet Marshal Varadin nodded eagerly. Even a few dozen additional vessels might make a difference. Commander Veltar looked skeptical. Their ships barely lasted minutes in the last battle. What good will more of them do? Numbers matter, replied the Marshal. And the humans have shown they're willing to fight even if they're not very effective. Chancellor Corinvel made his decision. Contact Ambassador Lee. Tell her we need every ship Earth can spare. This is the final push. Either we stop the Devourers now or we lose everything. The message reached Ambassador Jinna Lee within hours. She read it carefully, then activated her secure communication system to contact Earth. The response came back quickly. It was time for Phase 3. Jinna requested an immediate meeting with the Coalition leadership. When they assembled, she delivered Earth's answer with perfect sincerity. My government has authorized the mobilization of our emergency reserves, she announced. Every ship we can possibly spare will join the war effort. Chancellor Corinvel looked relieved. How many ships can you provide? Jinna paused dramatically. Our emergency fleet consists of vessels we hoped never to use. Many are old, some are experimental, others are barely space-worthy. But we can provide approximately 400 ships. The coalition leaders stared at her in shock. 400 ships? From a species that supposedly had only 12 vessels? 400? Repeated High Arbiter Luxandra. Where did they come from? Jinna had prepared for this question. Earth has been building ships in secret for decades, preparing for the day we might face a threat too great for the coalition to handle. We didn't mention them because we hoped we'd never need to use them. It was a brilliant lie that contained just enough truth to be believable. Yes, Earth had been building ships in secret. No, they hadn't mentioned them. But the numbers were still far from the real truth. Fleet Marshal Varadin's tentacles writhed with excitement. 400 ships could change everything. When can they be here? Within the week, Jinna replied. But I must warn you, these are not military vessels. Many are converted cargo ships and civilian transports. They won't last long in direct combat. Every ship helps, insisted Chancellor Corinvel. We're grateful for Earth's sacrifice. As the meeting ended, Jinna allowed herself a small smile. The coalition thought they were getting 400 primitive ships crewed by desperate humans. In reality, they were about to witness the first glimpse of humanity's true power. Out in the Kuiper Belt, Admiral Sujin Choi received her final orders. It was time to begin the revelation. The true fleet would emerge from hiding, but gradually. First, they would send 400 ships that looked primitive but fought with surprising effectiveness. Then, as the war continued, they would reveal more and more of their capabilities. Admiral, reported Captain Jae-hoon Ryu, the first wave is ready for deployment. 400 vessels configured to match coalition expectations while demonstrating superior combat performance. Sujin nodded. Begin the operation, and Captain? Yes, Admiral? Make sure our ships look surprised by their own effectiveness. The coalition needs to think we're discovering our potential, not revealing it. The deception was entering its final phase. Soon, the galaxy would realize that the species they had been protecting was actually the predator they should have feared most. But by then, it would be too late to change the outcome. The war against the Devourers would be won. But the real question was what would happen afterward, when the coalition realized who their true protectors really were. The final battle for the galaxy began at Nexus Station, where 7 major hyperspace routes came together like spokes on a wheel. Supreme Chancellor Corin Vell stood on the bridge of the coalition flagship, watching the largest fleet in Galactic history prepare for war. Over 10,000 ships from dozens of species filled the space around the massive station. Chromin battleships bristled with weapons, Void Swimmer destroyers moved in perfect formation, and crystalline hegemony carriers launched thousands of fighter craft. It was an impressive sight, but Corinvell knew it might not be enough. Chancellor, reported Fleet Marshal Varadin, the Devourer fleet has been detected at the edge of the system. Estimated numbers, over 20,000 vessels. The bridge fell silent. Even with their combined forces, the coalition was outnumbered 2-1. And that was just what they could see. Intelligence suggested the Devourers had even more ships, hiding in hyperspace. What about the human reinforcements? Asked High Arbiter Luxandra. 400 ships holding position in the outer system, replied the Marshal. Captain Park requests permission to join the main battle line. Commander Veltar shook his head. Their ships won't last 5 minutes against the Devourer main fleet. Keep them in reserve for rescue operations. Admiral Cawthron agreed. The humans have shown courage, but this battle requires experienced warriors with proven technology. As if summoned by their words, the Devourer fleet emerged from hyperspace like a plague of locusts. Their organic ships writhed through space, led by a massive queen ship that dwarfed even the largest coalition dreadnought. The sight of it made seasoned warriors nervous. All ships, Chancellor Corinvell broadcast across the fleet. This is our final stand. Fight with honor, fight with courage, and fight for the survival of everything we hold dear. The battle began with a thunderous exchange of fire that lit up the entire system. Coalition ships launched everything they had: plasma cannons, quantum, torpedoes, graviton beams, and exotic weapons that bent reality itself. For a moment it looked like they might succeed. But the Devourers had learned from previous encounters. Their ships absorbed the energy attacks and converted them into fuel for their own weapons. Coalition shields, designed to stop traditional weapons, crumpled under the molecular disruptors that ate matter at the atomic level. We're losing ships faster than we can count them, reported Tactical Officer Zendara. The Third Fleet has lost 60% of its vessels. The Fifth Fleet is completely destroyed. Admiral Cawthron's voice crackled over the communication system. All ships fighting withdrawal to Rally Point 7. We need to regroup, and his transmission cut off abruptly as his flagship exploded under Devourer fire. Sir, the communications officer called to Chancellor Corinvell. We're receiving signals from the human fleet. Captain Park is requesting permission to engage. Denied, snapped Commander Veltar. Their ships are no match for this enemy. But even as he spoke, something strange was happening in the outer system. Space itself seemed to ripple and bend, as if reality was having trouble deciding what was real. Chancellor, the sensor operator called out. I'm detecting massive energy signatures throughout the system. Sources unknown. Elaborate. Sir, it's like there are thousands of ships out there that we can't see. But that's impossible. Then, in a moment that would be remembered throughout galactic history, the impossible became reality. Across the entire Nexus system, space began to reveal its secrets. What had appeared to be empty void suddenly filled with ships, not hundreds, but thousands upon thousands of vessels that materialized as their cloaking systems deactivated. The human fleet was not 400 converted cargo ships. It was the most advanced armada the galaxy had ever seen. Captain Hyunwoo Park, now revealed to be Admiral Hyunwoo Park, opened communication channels to every ship in the system. This is Admiral Park of the Human Defense Force. All Coalition vessels, you are now under our tactical command. Follow our lead and we will show you how this war ends. The Coalition leaders stared in shock at their displays. The new human ships were massive, sleek, and radiating energy signatures that made Coalition dreadnoughts look like toys. At the center of the formation, a ship 3 times larger than anything in the Coalition fleet announced itself as the new Sol. "This is impossible," whispered High Arbiter Luxandra. "Where did they come from?" Admiral Soo-Jin Choi's voice answered her from the new Sol's bridge. "We've been here all along, Arbiter. You just weren't ready to see us." The battle that followed was unlike anything in recorded history. Where Coalition forces had fought with honor and established tactics, the humans fought with terrifying efficiency and creativity that bordered on art. Captain Jae-hoon Ryu commanded a squadron of ships that seemed to phase in and out of normal space, striking at Devourer command nodes with surgical precision. Commander Yujin Kang led fighters that moved like they were dancing, weaving through Devourer swarms and leaving destruction in their wake. But it was the humans' understanding of their enemy that proved most devastating. While Coalition forces had been trying to match the Devourers in raw firepower, humans had spent months studying their true weakness. "All ships," Admiral Soo-Jin Choi broadcast, "target the Queen ship's communication array. Coordinates are being transmitted now." Captain Mi-young-jung piloted a ship that transformed before the Coalition's eyes, reconfiguring itself from a destroyer into what looked like a massive siege weapon. Her target was a specific point on the Queen ship's hull that Coalition sensors had dismissed as unimportant. The shot that ended the war lasted exactly 3 seconds. A beam of pure energy, focused through technology the Coalition couldn't understand, pierced the Queen ship's defenses and struck its hidden command center. The effect was immediate and absolute. Across the entire Devourer fleet, ships suddenly stopped their coordinated movements. They drifted helplessly as their hive mind connection was severed, leaving thousands of vessels without purpose or direction. "Impossible," breathed War Leader Zekmoth from his battleship. "How did they know where to target?" Admiral Chang Ho-yoon answered from his command ship. "We've been watching and learning, War Leader. While you thought you were protecting us, we were studying our enemies. Every battle, every encounter, every piece of data, we used it all." The remaining Devourer ships, leaderless and confused, began fleeing toward the galactic rim. Some Coalition vessels moved to pursue them, but Admiral Soo-Jin Choi's voice stopped them. "Let them go. They're no longer a threat without their command structure, and we have other matters to discuss." The aftermath of the battle was a mix of celebration and shock. Coalition leaders found themselves aboard the new Sol, staring at technology that made their most advanced systems look primitive. Director Tae-min Kim, no longer hiding his true role, sat across from Chancellor Korenvel in the ship's main conference room. Around the table sat beings who had just discovered that everything they thought they knew about humanity was wrong. 200 billion, Kim said quietly, answering the question that everyone was thinking. That's humanity's real population, spread across 400 worlds that you never knew existed. Fleet Marshal Varadin's tentacles writhed with disbelief. 400 worlds? But we've been monitoring human expansion. You've shown us 12 ships, claimed to be a single-planet species. You've been monitoring what we wanted you to monitor, Kim replied. We've been expanding into space for over a century. By the time you found us, we already had a galactic civilization. High Arbiter Luxandra's crystal form pulsed with confused colors. Then why did you pretend to be primitive? Why accept protected status? Ambassador Jin Ali, now revealed as Director Jin Ali of Human Intelligence, smiled. Because we needed to know who you were, your species, your capabilities, your intentions. The best way to study a potential threat is to make them think you're harmless. War Leader Zekmoth leaned forward. You've been conducting intelligence operations against the entire coalition. The most comprehensive intelligence-gathering operation in galactic history, confirmed Lee. We've mapped your territories, studied your technologies, analyzed your military doctrines, and identified the personal weaknesses of every major leader. The implications hit them all at once. Humanity hadn't been seeking protection. They had been conducting the largest spy operation ever attempted. Commander Veltar found his voice first. "What do you want from us?" Director Kim stood and walked to the conference room's massive window. Outside, the human fleet stretched to the horizon, thousands of ships representing technology and military power that dwarfed anything the Coalition possessed. "The same thing we've always wanted," he said. "Peace, prosperity, and the chance to explore the galaxy without interference. But now that you know the truth, the question isn't what we want from you." He turned back to face the Coalition leaders, his expression serious but not threatening. "The question is whether you can accept us as equals instead of the primitives you thought we were. Because make no mistake, we are not your clients, your protégés, or your subjects. We are the apex predator of this galaxy, and we always have been." War leader Zekmoth was the first to laugh. It started as a low chuckle and built into the roaring battle cry of his species.